This morning, we're going to kick this off the right way. So the thing that I really enjoy about this conference is that everybody we put on stage knows what they're talking about. They have the battle scars. They've lived this life. You know, they've submitted juror tickets at 3 a.m. They've rolled back releases. They've done the whole works, right? So Jeff Pomeroy from PayPal is going to come up, and it's a payments conference. If we don't talk about agentic payments and commerce, we're not a payments conference. So that's the topic he's going to cover. Jeff, literally, his career is a trip. I'm going to make sure I got this right, Jeff. Wells Fargo, Blackhawk, dude, Blackhawk, good for you. Adyen, Fiserv, and now at PayPal. So he might know what he's talking about. So if you would, welcome Jeff to the stage.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Moov team, for having me out. As mentioned, the big head up there is me. I'm Jeff Pomeroy, and I work at PayPal. I've been there for about a year, and I run the payments platform. So whether you're interacting with the wallets, small business platform, or enterprise platform, I manage that, and then the enterprise business units. And as Sam indicated, I've been in payments a long time. I started in the mid-90s. And so one of the themes you'll hear from me from a product and development standpoint today is you need to go back in order to go forward. I believe a lot of the knowledge that we've developed, most of the people in this room probably have played a significant role in developing so many of the technological advances that we've done that have led us down to the path we're at today. We've all played a role in getting us to where we're at today, but this future is moving very fast, and I'm very excited for it. But I'd be remiss if I didn't mention two things just to kick us off. One is with regards to the Moov happy hour last night. My family was very sad to see that I did not take a puppy home. But it was very cool. I've never seen that at a happy hour, so I really appreciate that. And second, as I was talking to Sam, I was bopping to this song that was about two back. And I'm sorry, this is kind of me, been around for 30 years in payments. It was the Gilligan's Island theme that was underlying the rap. And I was wondering, why am I bopping along with that, going 3 hour tour? So let's have fun today. So I think if you've got to know something about me, you don't get started in payments and stay in payments and do a lot of the things that I've done without having a lot of fun. I hope that's the attitude of everybody here. It'll be thematic for me throughout this entire talk. And what is that talk? The anatomy of agentic commerce. You probably have all heard the term agentic commerce, agentic development, agentic tools. You know what's interesting about this is I went to my trusty AI platform this morning and I said, what's the first recorded time or date tied to the use of agentic commerce in a public setting? It was February of this year at NRF, tied to a Bain Capital venture partner. The second was with a couple developer conferences of which our organization was part of. So it just tells you that this anatomy that we're thinking of is a little different than other types of anatomy. And I was thinking and kind of laughing anatomy because it took me back to being 13 years old and walking down the hallway of Bryant Junior High and Dearborn High School as I was nervously entering the science lab, the Bunsen burner, the science teacher, and I look down and I see the gray tray and a poor frog pinned to that tray. And we dissected it. And the idea was, you're going to go through the anatomy of the frog and you're going to learn all about it. And the interesting thing about that description is that the frog itself had no, the frog was the frog. The dissection, the pieces of the frog were standard for me and the person sitting next to me. Now flash forward to now in the current world, I have a 13-year-old daughter and I asked her about dissecting the frog. Did she even know about it? She's in middle school. She didn't. She said, we read about it, it was described, so we all came up with our own conclusions. We read about the anatomy and we read about dissection. So as I sit here and talk about anatomy of agentic commerce today, I'm going to lean more towards how my daughter's learning about it. Because at the end of the day, agentic commerce is moving so fast. It's coming at it from such different angles, from a different development tax. The tools we have now that exist in 2025 didn't exist in 2024. So the very definition of the anatomy of agentic commerce is probably what each one of you will determine that is appropriate for you in your development cycles, for your businesses. So today I'll be walking through a number of the different tools that have changed, a number of the different approaches that you can take, a number of the things that are out there publicly, what's being said, and how you should think about it in your own lives as developers, as business leaders. But one thing is for sure, agents are going to power the future. The millions, the billions, I can't say trillions, I can say valuations in the trillions, but the billions of dollars being poured into artificial intelligence and the amount of money that is being spent by organizations like ours to completely shift how we're interacting with developers around the world tell you that everything that we know now is just the beginning. And in this audience, the key to this is developers. How developers interact with the AI tools, the agentic servers, large language models, tell you a lot about what is going to be possible in the future. I'm fascinated with just the launch of our company's servers and our agentic toolkits that I'll talk about, what those do later, and how we're seeing it already utilized. They're being used for things we never thought were going to happen. And I'm constantly asked, hey, is this how it's going to work? Is this a zero-sum game? Is this a winner takes all? The reality is, I'm not even sure we're at the second batter at the first inning of a baseball game. But it's so exciting already. So what is true now, today, may not be true next month, or an advancement will be made next month. That's how unique this is, and I'll explain why this is happening. So today we're going to break down a few steps, and I hope you have a lot of fun, and I hope you have some questions, because at the end I am going to have a Q&A, but we're going to talk about how we got here. As I mentioned, I like to go back in order to come forward and understand, how we sit here today. We're going to talk about the power of agentic development, and from a development perspective, how it's going to help you. I think the most important thing that I'll talk about is how it enhances our ability to deliver. This unfolding revolution that we're seeing that play out against business models, and I find it fascinating to see already the big players getting involved who are entrenched in certain business flows and solutions are already trying to figure out how to maintain their grasp on everything that they're doing today. The opportunities that everybody in this room has and the challenges you should be aware of, and there are many. Again, early innings, of course there are. There's exciting opportunities for us to handle. I'll be walking through some of the challenges you should look out for, and just some closing thoughts. But again, I'm going to try to leave about 10 minutes for Q&A, so especially as I'm engaging with this audience, if you have questions, you have disputes, you want to tell me I'm wrong, that's what I'm here for. So at the end of the day, let's have some opinions, let's have some fun. So how did we get here? It's been a long storied road for me. I started in the 90s, and it's kind of a funny thing. I started in e-commerce. For those who started back in the 90s, you had to be around for that era where you could type -1 into quantity and they'd still take the order and ship it to you, and you'd get a $0 cart. If you've never seen that, then I'm sorry, but it was an era you lived through. It was kind of fun if you were a quality assurance person back there. So let's kind of dig in from a development cycle, how we got here. And we're going to take this first decade of 2000 to 2010 earlier, manual coding. I think everybody here understands what's involved in the day-to-day. But developers were starting to see developer experiences that could actually go ahead and create code snippets that could actually kind of get imported into your code. And in this era, it was basically a means of appending to your code. It was a way to kind of speed you along. But at the end of the day, it was you had to check it as developers. You had to make sure it worked. You had to do the error handling. All of the things you're expected to do as developers. It was the early days, a 10-year cycle. As we moved into the next decade, and this is important as I'm talking about this, think about this, decades for just a minute, we moved into auto-completion. And this was really interesting because you would sit there and say, I'm going to go ahead and do some work, and then now I'm going to depend on different tools that can auto-complete this code because it knows these sequences. So it's a recognition of what you're doing. Different companies deployed this differently, but at the end of the day, it was there to speed you up and help you avoid errors that you might be taking on as developers. But at the end of the day, the responsibility, as it always should be, lies with the development teams to make sure that everything that you're importing into your code, even if it's to autocomplete, is yours and yours alone. Now it starts to get interesting in terms of timing, because 2020 to 2022, or as I like to call it, the COVID era. Most of us are probably blanked out about how fast that timeline was for us. But believe it or not, we started to see the advent of the first AI coding assistants. And this is when we started to see, basic code generation being made based on intent of developers. We're saying this is what we're going to do. This is recommendations. It would automatically sense what you're doing in the code. Different companies deployed this at different velocities. And at the end of the day, you're streamlining a lot of repetitive tasks. Again, it's not replacing what you're doing. It's there to speed you along, enhance your delivery as developers. But again, I'm going to keep coming back to this. The responsibility of checking the code, making sure it is viable for your organization, and the solution that you're developing is yours and yours alone. But this is the first time we actually ever started to see large language models start to take action. Then we started to see context-aware development environments. The cursors, the replets, all coming on the scene. Now, take a look at this, 2023 to 2024. I went decade, then I went decade, and then I went 2 years. And then suddenly we've got these context-aware development environments that are integrating into all these AI tools for you. So you don't have to worry about how you're going to go ahead and connect to certain tools or services. These environments are already connected for you, and they're constantly expanding their integrations to make your job as developers seamless. This is really interesting because this is all out of the box. This started unlocking possibilities for rapid productivity. It also started unlocking possibilities for different types of development routines and the ultimate commercial models that you would develop, because what you're seeing in these independent developer experiences is you're getting tools that you otherwise may not even have exposure to. And flash forward to today. As Sam said, you can't have a payments conference without saying agentic, and here we are, agentic development. And now we've got the advent of new tools, model context protocol servers that simplify your lives, where the companies that generate those servers are actually doing all the error handling, all the calls for you, making sure it adapts, it's resilient. And then you've got toolkits that can simply be enabled through simple intent prompts. The reality of this is when we started to also see AI automatically generating code. So the MCP servers are out there on behalf of companies like ours, and the code is generated automatically behind. You as developers just need to figure out who to interact with and what's the right service for you. This is the paradigm shift. This is when things start to get really interesting. The reality is that when you have frameworks like this that can move between tasks so simply, as developers, you go ahead and you start to create much more complex commerce models. You start to actually speed through your development in such a way that you have a bandwidth savings, if you will. And at the end of the day, you have others that are going along on this journey that are completing your development with you. Now, I'm very careful in how I use my language, because I think if you read the news today or you listen to certain CEOs, and I'm not talking about you, Wade, but if you talk about certain CEOs, they're saying AI is going to replace my developers. I have a better way to look at it. Agentic development and AI is going to help you enhance your development so you can go faster. It's going to take away mundane tasks, repetitive tasks, and it's going to assist you in completing your tasks in a more rapid way. I think that's a healthier way to look at it. It's the way that my team and I interact with it, because if I can take away mundane tasks and let's call that a double-digit percentage, 30%, it allows me to focus my world on the other 70% that needs deep thinking and more developer attention. But if you're looking at this chart and you're looking at me going from the 2000 to 2009, 2010 to 20, and all of a sudden speeding up, something else had to have happened. And that is that AI has gotten intensely more resilient, and AI has gotten much smarter. Prakar Maratha at our company, he's our head of AI, he showed this chart out to a very large group of us, and it generated questions for about 30 minutes. But I'll kind of like truncate that because I don't have 30 minutes to go through. But what's fascinating, if you look at the charts, if you think about the era I just went through in terms of development timelines, this speed up and everything we're seeing aligns very much. So the intelligence factor is sitting at 2022 as we were kind of seeing LLMs come into cycle in the mid-20s. 100 is artificial general intelligence. This is Skynet. This is everything we know when everybody takes your job, and everybody's racing towards that. But around 2023, we actually got kind of locked in the 40s. And basically, there were a lot of opinions in the AI world, as Prakar has told me, is that this is it. If we invest all the money in the world, this is about as smart as it gets. And so you started to see context-aware development environments like I was talking about come around and saying, if this is it, let's kind of capitalize on this and build. And then the breakthrough happened in 24, where we went to the 70s. And this unlocked a tremendous amount of potential. This is what's driving the sea change in all the different tools and servers you're seeing come out of organizations for you, the development teams, to go ahead and interact with. That can literally save you time and effort and error and headaches. This is a fascinating chart. And what I will tell you in interacting with all of these different companies behind these models is that all the billions and billions of dollars that you're hearing about them raising, it's to get them from the 70s to 100. That's the race they're at. The rest of us are building tools as fast as we can for development teams to interact, which creates this race towards really complex agentic commerce models so that we can all participate. There's a stat that we have floating around, and I think it's really up for debate, that by the time we get to 2030, about 25 to 30% of all e-commerce happening online will happen through agents taking place where no human is in the loop. That's pretty fast in terms of adoption. If you think about 20% of the total addressable market of purchase behavior is happening online, you're literally talking about 30% of that is now going to be agent-driven in under 5 years. So this just shows you how fast of a cycle we're moving into. I think it's exciting, and I think you've got to have fun with it, kind of like I was talking about. But at the same time, it's a little bit exhausting. As somebody who's been doing this for 30 years, it's kind of like, now what? Oh, I open the news every day. Oh, something else to talk about. So now now that I've kind of explained this, I want to talk a little bit about what the real power of agentic development is and how you should be thinking about it. And I think probably every single one of you probably could come up here and talk about this if you've experimented it with me. But I just want to talk a real simple example. Non-agentic, everything that we've done up to the 2020 era is API orchestration. You build your workflows. You go ahead and you do your payment validation. You do your retry logic. You check your logs, all of that fun stuff. And that is how things have been done. There's nothing wrong with it. This new agentic sea change is you delegate a majority of that work to an agent. You call a tool, and you say, prompt, do this. Here's the attributes you need. I'm done. I'm going to go work on some other things. The adaptability, the resilience sits inside the agent framework. That's a pretty big change, right? If you were sitting there and you're a developer and you started working on APIs and saying, hey, this is what I'm going to do, and all of a sudden someone says, I'm going to go ahead and introduce something totally different. It's this moment where you're going, whoa, what's going on? You know, how am I going to live with this? So let's talk a little bit about an actual use case. And this use case actually stems from our MCP server and our toolkit. And the reality is, kind of like I was describing before, you're hitting the API, you're validating a payment method. This is for an invoicing use case where a small business wants to invoice another business. And so they've tasked the development team with going and doing these 5 pretty basic steps that everybody would be familiar with. You generate your follow-up message, you handle your fallbacks, your logging, your retries. This is standard development. So if you were to go to our company's page and say, let's go ahead and create an invoice, you'd go to the MCP server. There's a toolkit there called Create Invoice. You'd create one structured intent prompt that has about 4 attributes: the email address of the person that's going to get the invoice, their name, the value, and any other kind of accompanying information, and you push the prompt. You're done. You'll get the traceability, you'll get the output. You've got to worry about other things. That's a pretty significant sea change. You could set up an MCP server and hit that toolkit in under an hour. I don't know what it would take to create this. If you're on a development team and saying, I got to create an invoicing use case by hitting a third-party API, I'm probably going to build that into an iteration or 2, and then I'm going to put it out and I'm going to test it. The whole idea behind MCP servers and the toolkits is that the company itself, our company, is literally sitting there saying, we've done all the error handling. You can rest assured when you hit us with the prompt, we'll give you the response. We've alleviated that time crunch for you. So I'm up here talking a little bit about these tools, how we got here, what you should be thinking about. The reality of it is that what's in it for you? Robustness, modular frameworks, the ability to reuse over and over again, the dependency you can have on these toolkits and MCP servers and all the different tools that are coming out for agentic development. Observability, giving you the full ability to have trace within these systems. You get your inputs, your outputs. It gives you the confidence that when you go ahead and use model context servers and the actual toolkits that are provided, you get the outcomes you want. The adaptability that you can use, as developers, you should be looking at, I'm going to use this MCP server to do this. I'm going to use this toolkit over here to do that. As these keep coming to market, and I think you're going to hear this theme from me over and over again, is experiment with tools. Find out how you as developers can adapt and adopt different types of toolkits that help your agentic development and kind of like bring to market new agentic commerce opportunities. And then everything about all the new tools are dev-forward design. They're not just abstractions from user experiences, et cetera. This is literally everything you need in order to package it up and enhance your development efforts. So as developers, you work for businesses. I refer to businesses as merchants. They're interchangeable to me. But what should businesses be looking at? As you're developing, if you're a business stakeholder here in this audience, what are you looking for? Well, the obvious one is rapid development. But I actually think it's like asterisk, rapid development without the possibility or eliminating the risk to my organization. And that's what MCP and the new toolkits that are coming out, that's what it brings to the table. Higher personalization. Now, this is the first time I'm going to touch on this. But as a business, when you're doing agentic development, there are 2 things you need in the ecosystem to really drive home a successful development experience. And that's identity. You have to know who you're interacting with, right? If you're going ahead, and I'll give examples of this in a moment, if you're interacting with a consumer or you're interacting with a business and you're using agentic tools, you have to have confidence of who you're interacting with. You have to have trust in the ecosystem. When you have identity, you can start to personalize more. I have a consumer use case I'll show you in a little bit. It gives you a really good breakdown of that. Obviously, reduced overhead. If you're in business and you're used to paying for expenses, reducing your overhead is key. Again, what I'm trying to get around is if I'm enhancing the development timelines and not replacing developers, I'm reducing my overhead so you can focus on other things. That's what a business leader needs to hear about. And then when you speed up development and you launch more interesting commerce applications, you have a much higher chance of higher conversion. Now, what's great about this, and everything that I'm talking about, is this isn't just a conjecture. This is an academic. Go out and explore tools. These are available today. Almost everything that I'm talking to you about today is live, that you can go and interact with. And as developers, I think you owe it to yourselves to start experimenting, because if everything is moved in the way that I explained, and we're starting to see the intelligence and the tools come to market, the reality is you need to be well-versed in this for your organization so that you can enhance your development skills and help your career and the businesses move forward. So, I'm preaching to the choir here. This is code. This is probably my only code snippet. I saw some of the examples yesterday where they were doing this. And this is just an actual code snippet using our payment reporting API. It's about 130 lines of code. So without MCP, this is how you do it. If you configure to an MCP client, like we have, same, again, payment reporting, this is the snippet that you would send to the MCP server to get the same outcome. It's pretty cool. It's actually kind of like if you're sitting in the audience and going, wait, I can do this, get the same outcome with the confidence because your organization has built the tool sets in such a way that it's done all my error handling, all of the possible overhead that I would have to think about, and I can get to the same outcome. Why wouldn't you be thinking about this? So let's talk about the unfolding revolution. Now, what's fascinating about all of this is the new frontier. Agents making purchases. How many people, show of hands, think they have performed, whether it be development or personally, an agentic transaction? Very low amount. I bet you a lot more have done it, but you have to actually think about, you have to take a step back. It's a big thing in my life. Take a step back. Who owns Amazon Alexa? Okay. I've got an Alexa Show. It sits on my countertop. And I have a cat and a dog. And it says, do you want to reorder cat food? It's been a month. My cat's getting skinny. I think I should order cat food. So all I do is say, Alexa, reorder cat food. It prompts and says, did you want me to order this specific type of cat food? Yes. It's done. It's a closed loop environment. But what was really present there? It knew who I was because I'm logged in, and it had the permission because it asked me to use my payment type. That's in a closed loop environment. Alexa's been doing that for a while. They didn't call it agentic. Well, they are now, to be fair. And they're going to extend that out to the regular open web. But the new frontier in commerce is letting this happen on the open internet. AI and agentic is redefining the flow of value. So if this was 3 years ago and I said, go find me a pair of Nike LeBron 22s, size 10.5, I'd type it into Google, and it would return back a Nike listing, probably Foot Locker. It would show me all the different types. And even Google Shopping's got it. And guess what's going on? Google is in that business simply because, guess what? They have product placement ads. They've got click-through. They've got SEO. Now take that same prompt and take it to ChatGPT. Take it to Perplexity. I would like you to find me a pair of Nike LeBron 22, size 10.5. I don't want to pay more than $120, and I'd like it to be here tomorrow. It'll find them for you. It's circumvented everything in the monetary flow of Google, and the advent of agentic commerce is, did you want to buy them? Yes. All right, let's confirm who you are. You're Jeff Pomeroy. Do you have this payment type? And our organization would, provided the retailer goes ahead and accepts certain payment types, can go ahead and two-factor authenticate that user and facilitate that purchase. It's more of a screen scrape kind of scenario. It's more of a browser abstraction. This is the early days. But what is so fascinating is that all the partners we're talking to right now are saying, who am I paying for that discovery? Who am I paying for the referral of that purchase? And the answer is nobody knows. Financial Times had an article out where Sam from OpenAI was saying that they want to take a percentage. Well, Google takes a percentage. Google takes a customer acquisition fee, product placement fee, all of those things. And the reality is, you'd be nuts not to want to disintermediate that. And as developers, we need to come up with really interesting commerce applications that we believe in that can find different value, because it is getting disintermediated. So as I began the talk, I gave a little chat about agentic commerce and when it came to be February. It's been a little noisy. Everybody's out there claiming it's a big logo, it's a big NASCAR slide. Everybody and their brother's out there talking about your agentic tool sets, my organization included, right? Why? Think about what I told you earlier. 30% of the online total addressable market is going to move towards agentic commerce. We all want a piece of it. As developers, you are the glue that's going to make this happen for your organizations. Now, what's fascinating is, going back to the anatomy of agentic commerce, is no one truly has a definition of all of the ways it'll get completed. We're all taking our best guesses. So we have a way that we can complete transactions. Shopify was out in the news this morning saying that with OpenAI, they can complete certain transactions on their environment. Their environment, right? Just like I said, Amazon is closed. Shopify is importing their inventory over to OpenAI and then bringing it back in to seamlessly make those purchases happen. We're all taking steps. Together as developers, those steps will move more rapidly using all the tools that AI is giving you, and we'll see a sea change of behavior as it relates to agentic commerce. If I were to come back, provided Moov would have me next year, and do this conference next year, my guess is you wouldn't even recognize this slide. That's how fast this is moving. So let's look at some domains of focus. I keep talking about agentic commerce. I used an example of consumers, but it's bigger than that. Businesses are trying to figure out, how do I interact with this? How do I expose my inventory to surfaces that I otherwise wouldn't do? How do I get this shoe inventory I have, and how do I get it into the ChatGPT? How do I get it to Perplexity? How do I get it to Gemini? The reality is businesses are looking and saying, what agents can help me? At the same time, we're working with a lot of businesses that are saying, I've got 100,000 SKUs on my site. People can go into search and then they've got to search for it. I actually want to launch an AI agent that can actually do the same thing that happens in ChatGPT, but I want to put it on my site because I want to help customers speed along. And then I actually in the chat, instead of like even sending them to the checkout flow, I want to just take their payment right there seamlessly because I know who they are and I get permission from them to make the payment. Agent consumer is the wild, wild west. This is what everybody's going after. This is where most of development time will be spent trying to figure out, on behalf of businesses, how to engage with consumers in such a way to drive sales in this AI framework. And then the part really is exciting is this agent-to-agent framework. No one's actually figured this out. It's somewhat scary. You give it a prompt, an AI agent a prompt, I'm going to go talk to 3 other agents and handle this for you. Whoa, now we're actually talking about disintermediating a lot in the ecosystem. Where I see this starting to play out is in the travel space. The travel space, as you can imagine, is insanely complex. Each vertical in the travel industry, hotels, airlines, train, bus, you name it, they're all inherently different. So if you're going to go ahead and do a prompt and say, I want to travel from Denver to New Mexico, I'm open to the methodology, but I just want to get there by Friday, I could see a future where developers are going to create agents to talk to other agents and say, let's all work together to find the solution for Jeff. That is what we should be thinking about. That is what we should be thinking about as developers and as businesses, about creating the solutions off the tools that are being made available to you. But these are the domains that are near term and things that are opportunities. Speaking of opportunities, I didn't know this was the next slide. I promised to talk about them. I want to leave you with a few things you should be thinking as developers, as business leaders. Business decisioning can be rapidly sped up. The automation of strategic pricing, inventories, you're going to be dealing with different platforms. You're going to have to figure out what you can offer different customers, different businesses in your ecosystem. AI can immensely speed this up. Persistent personalization, identity again. Once you actually know who you're dealing with, you'll then be able to pull in the seamless history, either from your platforms or, depending on who you're interacting with, from other platforms to allow you to curate your interaction. These are opportunities that everyone should be taking a look at, because if I go to a site and I say, hey, I want a pair of Nikes, it's going to say, okay, well, tell me about them, color, did you have a specific brand in mind, did you have a size, versus I want a pair of Nikes. Well, hey, Jeff, it's good to see you again. Size 10.5, still fitting? Good. Is this your loyalty number? Great. Hey, can we validate your payment type before we get started? Persistent personalization. Also within that same personalization, automating customer loyalty and rewards. The stickiness. It's everything that drives e-commerce. It's everything that drives basket size. If you're thinking about agentic commerce, do not forget about this. There are solutions that can be developed that are going to go ahead and be plug-in, just like everything with the model context protocol servers and toolkits I'm talking about. It's an opportunity. Agent to agent, as I was explaining in the travel, there's a massive amount of development thought process that needs to be put into this. What are the complex verticals that need the attention of developers and businesses? We have not even seen a sliver of the opportunity. Again, which harkens back to my baseball analogy, we are at the second at bat in the first inning. Agent optimized marketplaces, this is fascinating. So if you think about marketplaces, they're usually very large platforms that have 10, if not hundreds of thousands of different entities that live in it. What can agents do within those marketplaces that not only service the businesses themselves, but how can it actually go ahead and surface things that are happening with the consumers that are interacting with those marketplaces? How can it make it easier to find? How can it make it easier to identify those consumers and make it to purchase? And then we are going to see vertically specific agentic systems. It's just a matter of time. Whether you believe in travel or you believe in medical, all of these things are going to come up because they have to be contained. Medical specifically, as you're going ahead and doing bills, you're going to have a HIPAA agent. Who doesn't love HIPAA? Can't talk about that with anybody. Nobody, not even the agent, can talk about it. So these are opportunities for you to think about. Now, it wouldn't be opportunities, as I promised, without challenges. We're in our early days. We're not even 6 months into all of these things I'm talking about, MCP servers, toolkits, et cetera. Anybody tells you this is easy, they're selling you a bridge. You don't want it. AI systems, still, we do not fully comprehend everything that we have to do with them, all of the different checks and balances. While it's an advancement, as I've been talking about with the toolkits and the servers themselves, AI systems aren't perfect. They hallucinate. They don't have persistent context. So I don't know if you've ever interacted like ChatGPT and say, hey, can you tell me what I should plant in my backyard? Oh, I think this bush will go great. Well, what if I don't want that bush? What were you talking about? It's real. So be prepared. Agents, they're cooperating today. They need to cooperate for a successful development future. They're also starting to see competition. If you saw the news last week, Amazon posted in their robot.txt that Google's Gemini was not allowed to shop on the site. And there's an honor system among these systems. I think it's short-lived. I think everybody's just trying to make sure they guard their businesses. It'll be interesting to watch play out. And the agentic ecosystem itself is making sure that the cornerstone of successful agentic development, agentic transactions, hearken to identity. It is not a foregone conclusion that every single solution has identity at its core. I challenge you to always keep that in mind, because with that comes trust. The cost for conversions, the marketing I was talking about, the disruption of the flow of value, they are challenges, and merchants themselves don't know where they sit in this decision-making process. And as we develop the solutions, you will run into friction, you will run into hurdles. Don't let it stop you. There is a way around this. Of course, the biggest challenge that everybody keeps talking about is security, privacy, compliance, risk, and fraud. Because now suddenly it's not the consumer making the transaction, it's the consumer giving permission to the agent to make transaction, and who's at fault when it buys 1,000 pairs of shoes instead of one? I think there's things that we're all doing in our systems where we're saying this is only allowed, these tokens, this permission for this consumer can only spend up to X amount of dollars or can only do one transaction. That's on us in terms of the tool sets and the payment types to work with, but you should be aware that this is of paramount importance. Everybody's saying, if an agent makes a transaction, who's responsible for the disputes? The answer is simple. The consumer gave permission to the agent. The consumer's going to do the dispute. But everybody, go on Twitter and everybody's got, a bit of advice. Closing thoughts. So if you haven't gotten, my gist here is get involved. Have fun. The reality of it is many of these tools are at your disposal today. There's no reason for you not to try it. The reality is it's going to enhance your lives. It's going to enhance your businesses. It's going to enhance your careers. I wouldn't want to sit this one out. As somebody who's sitting here, and Wade, thank you, you said something to me the other day, is I was interacting with this system and it made me feel old. It does. It makes me feel old because I know all the ways we did it in the past, and this has truncated it down to a snippet of intent. But it also makes me really excited because I can't wait to see what's going to come in the next quarter or the next year, what this crowd actually starts to build. Now, as I've come up here, I've been very purposeful in my presentation to make sure it's been all about developers, all about solutions, and not my company. But I did at least want to say our philosophy is that with trust, with identity, with permission, you can actually start to move at velocity. Our tools are available. Our MCP server allows you to take orders, take payments, create invoices. My general takeaway is get out there and have fun. I was saying this yesterday because it was so hot. There was a famous video where Steve Ballmer's up on stage and he's screaming, and he's all sweaty, and he's like, developers, 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 developers. I'm going to tell you it's tools, tools, tools. So when you're building agents and you're thinking about the tools, let me ask you, do you actually need an agent? Are you actually thinking about the business use case? Are you giving it the thought it needs? Are you working from the problem and the customer back? And kind of like I was saying throughout this with identity and trust, are you prioritizing that? It doesn't do you any good to develop a solution if you don't actually have the trust of the party you're interacting with. The business, the consumer. You could have the coolest agentic commerce tool in the world, but if they don't trust you, it's worthless. So put that right in front of everything you're doing. Use these tools, have fun, get out there, ask questions. So I've gone through this talk. I hope that I've conveyed at the end of the day that this is on you. It's on me to put the right tools out there in the public persona. It's on us to make it easy, but it's on the entire developer ecosystem to take us into the next era of agentic development and agentic commerce. Because without your feedback, without your delivery, without your launch of services and solutions, what's the point? So have fun. I keep having fun. I want you to continue to have fun. And with that, if you have any questions, and I reserve the right to say no, I don't know, because I'm just that guy, but I'm happy to answer them. I see one. Of course, it's Wade. It's early in the morning. You just had breakfast. All good. Wade.
Hey, Jeff. First off, thanks for being here. We really appreciate it. My question is, you're passionate about small business. You're passionate about people being able to sell. Where do you see this going from a kind of, we're starting to see gateways for things like Shopify or Amazon and kind of the more traditional independent online merchant is less and less relevant. So does this make more consolidation into e-commerce, or does it actually open up the opportunity for more independence outside of some of these conglomerates?
It is the number one question being asked inside our organization today in full transparency. So Wade's asking essentially, there's stories out there that are talking about agentic commerce as disintermediating small businesses. I don't believe that to be true. I think it's a hypothetical. If you take a look at the news today, Shopify is exposing the inventory of all the small businesses on their platform, and they're exposing it into the OpenAI environment. PayPal is doing the same type of approach. If you think about the small business division of PayPal, it's tens of millions of businesses. All of that inventory sits within our ecosystem. It's on us to work cohesively to expose that inventory to these AI surfaces, to then go ahead and say, hey, Mr. Small Merchant that's selling a widget, we've gone ahead and extended your inventory out to every AI chat surface so that you could go ahead and start to achieve more sales than you otherwise would have with your single standalone store and the SEO marketing you're doing. The reality is if you have a pair of shoes that are really unique, it's on you. When you own a platform that is servicing small businesses, it's on us in the agentic realm to figure out how to expose that inventory in a secure way so that we can go ahead and render more sales. Now, what's really interesting, just to double click on this, is the small businesses aren't fighting this. As you can imagine, they're like, hey, bring me along on this. This is wonderful because I see this as a huge purveyor of future sales. It's the big merchants that are paying tens of millions of dollars out to the Googles and the Bings and the DuckDuckGos, what have you, for product placement. They're going, well, if I start exposing my inventory over to Perplexity is going to start charging me my customer acquisition fees. And I want to circumvent that. That's what's causing the big merchants to kind of sit there and go, I don't know if I want my inventory exposed yet. So maybe what I'll do is I'll build an agent in my ecosystem to see how consumers interact with it, which is kind of weird. But if you have tens of thousands of SKUs, it maybe makes sense. But the small businesses are the ones that are going to be engaged with agentic first and foremost. And I think someone should write a story about how they're dipping their toe in with the platforms to make agentic commerce viable, because it doesn't do us any good if we go to ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini, Copilot, and you say, find me a hat, and it shows you one hat. And by the way, as a funny aside, we're experimenting inside and trying different inventory models. And someone was doing this search yesterday, and they said, find me a baseball cap. Now, I know in the inventory there's probably 400 baseball caps, but it gave them one response. And the feedback in our Slack channel was, well, that kind of sucks. So you can imagine what that would mean in these AI platforms if you're not exposing a good amount of inventory. So it's on us as the platforms in the small business realm to really get that moving along. It's a great question. Question in the back. Oh, here, let's do this one and then we'll come to you. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate you speaking. I'm curious about your thoughts about where you have also autonomous robots then doing the delivery. Like, how far can you take this with AI agent shops for you, and then robot picks it up and then delivers it to your house? And is there a human in the loop?
I think this audience should tell me where it's going. Honestly, I think it's fascinating. You know, there's a thing where kind of a concept where I speak into my phone, I'm walking down the street and say, hey, restock my groceries for me. You already have my list. Go for it. A shopper goes and does it. A robot picks it up. I live in the Bay Area in Pleasanton. They have robots all over the streets that are delivering groceries. And they literally just go in, they pull up to the sidewalk, your porch, and they just drop them off. The robot calls you and says they're outside. I don't know where this ends. It's fascinating. I hope there's not that many drones in the sky. I'm still a little weirded off by someone getting a Slurpee delivered. But I can see that being a little bit problematic. But again, if I go back to what I said, if I were to come back next year and do this speech, I'm guessing that it's going to be a very different speech about what's been automated, what's possible with agentic development, what's possible with agentic commerce. We might be in the third inning by then, but it's going to be a paradigm shift. It's a great question. But again, I'll take it back to this audience. Tell me where it's going to go.
Hi, good morning. Where do you see, you had your slide up there where you had at the bottom around security and fraud. Where do you see the software, all the parameters around security in these systems? Is it something that the developers are going to be required to put on? Is it going to be no-code platforms that come in? Is it regulation that's going to force it? Speaking in the past, that's usually what happens, right? Is regulation comes in. So is there a proactive approach to it, or is it something that's just kind of, we're just going to figure it out as we go?
It's a great question, and I will let me tell you my answer from a PayPal organization and where I think it's going when you go outside of PayPal. So PayPal has 450 million users. We know the identity of every single one of them. And if you were to engage in an agentic transaction and that agent asks you for permission, we're either going to push that permission request into the mobile app or we're going to two-factor authenticate, eliminating that risk, because now I've gone ahead and taken, kind of like 3DS. I know something about the customer, and then they validated it. I think what's going to happen, though, to your point, because of the past, and we learned from the past, is you're going to see people coming outside of ecosystems like PayPal and saying, oh, I just accepted a 16-digit card number, and it went through. And then all of a sudden, that causes regulation to happen. And saying, okay, now I need you to validate with the issuer that that consumer has given permission. And now you're starting to invite the likes of Visa, MasterCard, the card issuers, pays-like experiences where they're saying, I need to hearken back to information on the bank file that tells me. I'm hoping we don't get to that. I sense we're going to see people move in that direction when otherwise people get really sloppy and don't put identity square in their crosshairs to build consumer trust. So we've seen it happen before. Every regulation is meant to correct sins of the past. I hope it doesn't happen. As developers, be careful when you're using tools and make sure that this trust, this identity factor is sitting within the tools that you're using. And if it's not, take it upon yourselves to figure out, how am I going to avoid causing regulation in the future? It's a wonderful question.
Hey, good morning.
Morning.
I know that PayPal has gone to market with a stablecoin through Paxos, and I'm curious how PayPal is thinking about giving agents their own smart contract wallets and their own, provision stablecoins to go out and do commerce with each other.
Wonderful question. So let me take a step back and say, at the end of the day, our philosophy is the consumer owns the wallet. In the event that I give permission to an agent, any type of currency or financial instrument that sits inside my wallet can be abstracted for the agent to use. So our philosophy is, if I start to expose PYUSD or other stablecoin inside our wallet, What happens in our agentic tools is that we will surface the wallet with permission and say, these are the financial instruments. The agent will get a link, kind of like the truncated last four. It'll show PYUSD. It'll even show the balances. It pulls it into the agent experience and says, which one did you want to use? And so we don't think the agents themselves in our ecosystem will have wallets, but yet the consumers who own the wallets will give permission for the agents to use the currency sitting inside. Now, going back to your question for a second, what worries me is that without a wallet infrastructure or without permission, and all of a sudden you're giving permission to go to a Coinbase custodian wallet, or I was talking to Alon at Solana, like how are you going to cause that permissioning back to that wallet so that the entire trust is in the ecosystem? I think that's big questions for everybody out in the third world of outside of PayPal. But it's a great question, and everybody should be thinking about that. Like, how do I get permission to use those funds? Thank you very much. I got one more question, and then you can clap. All right.
How does PayPal fit into agentic commerce with it not being a major storefront, but also not being a widely used AI to present the information to the general consumer?
It's the number one question people keep asking. And so this is a great question, and I'm going to wrap up after this because they've got me on a tight leash in terms of time. We actually have the identities. So I've got 30 million merchants that operate around the globe and 450 million active users. So in that context I was just having by answering her question around regulation and that, if I go into an agent and I use my Nike analogy and said, did you want to shop today? I might have the email address of that customer already, or they might prompt that they already have our payment method. The reality is I can two-factor authentication, and then once I do that, I can hand back a unique agentic token back to the AI platform and allow it to complete the transaction using PayPal. So the tools we've had allow you to go ahead and dial on tens of millions of users and merchants through agentic tools. So you're 100% right. We don't have an agentic framework out there. We don't have an actual platform itself. That's what ChatGPT is for. That's what Perplexity is for. But we have actually all the tools that glue the identity and the trust in the middle that causes us to move towards that 30% of e-com moving towards agentic. So my favorite part is that the philosophy we have at PayPal is going to keep changing, but it will never veer from knowing who we're interacting with, hence our wallet users, and the trust and the permission we have to make the transaction. So it's a great question. So as I wrap this up, I'll go back to the frog analogy and say thank you very much. The anatomy of agentic commerce is being defined. You are all going to play a major role in the definition of agentic commerce over time. I'm just really happy that there was no formaldehyde, I had to do it, in this presentation as I think about anatomy and the back to the frog. So thank you very much, Moov, for having me today. Wonderful questions. It's been a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.